Thanks, Lisa. All right, so before we start, today we're here to talk about innovation and ideas in dispute resolution. But before we do start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on where we're meeting today, Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and obviously there's a lot of people from different locations, so acknowledging the traditional owners. I recognise their connection to land, waters and cultures and pay my respects to elders past and present. So thanks everybody for joining the webinar today. The Complaint Management Interest Group focus this year is around complaint handling best practice, challenges, strategies, receipt and to closing those complaints out. Discussions that we've had for the past sort of 8 months now has sort of centered around unreasonable complainant conduct, customer expectations, and then now what we're seeing a lot of is impact of customer vulnerability. So today's webinar, as I just briefly mentioned, is innovations and ideas in dispute resolution. And we have 3 wonderful presenters today who are going to tell us about what strategies their organisations have put in place that's innovative in the changing landscape of dispute resolution. So thanks everybody for joining. Questions, ask away. You can put them in the chat function. We will have time after each of the presenters for everybody to ask questions. And so today we have I'll just introduce them briefly and then we can start. I'll share screens and we can get through the presentations. So we've got Nicole Smith, who is the Manager Banking and Finance at the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. So Nicole, there you are. I can see you on screen now, Nicole. So Nicole joined Financial Ombudsman Services in early 2017, coming from a branch management role at Suncorp Bank up in Queensland. Nicole's stayed on during the transition from Financial Ombudsman Services at AFCA and has been leading one of the general banking team for the past 4 years. At the moment, Nicole is sitting role of Senior Manager in the credit space, while the usual Senior Manager is enjoying a lovely trip over in Canada. So thank you, Nicole. We've got Mandy Wilkins, Assistant Ombudsman Dispute Resolution at the Energy and Water Ombudsman Victoria. Mandy, Assistant Ombudsman, has been at EWOV since 2008. Multiple roles in that time, from conciliator, obviously up, climbing the ranks to Assistant Ombudsman. Dispute resolution obviously covers all elements of case handling, community outreach and scheme participant liaison functions. Prior to EWOV, back in 2008, Mandy was manager role for internal dispute resolution at one of the big 4 banks. So thank you, Mandy, for joining us as well. And I'm hoping he's having some technical difficulties at this point in time, but Geese Norija, Improvement and Project Lead at the Telecommunication Industry Ombudsman, is also joining. He's been at TIO for about 9 months. Before that, worked in NBN for a considerable period of time. His areas of expertise are project and quality management, undergraduate of telco engineering, graduate diploma of sustainable energies, and Master of Business Administration. So he's passionate about technology, delivering tangible value. So I'm really looking forward to hearing innovations and ideas in dispute resolution. And Nicole, I will share my screen if that's okay, and you can let me know when you're ready for me to turn slides. But I hope everyone welcomes Mandy, Nicole and Geese for being here today and presenting for us. So just bear with me one moment and I will share my screen. Alrighty, can everybody see that? Thumbs up, awesome. Thank you, Kay. Nicole Sorry, I'm on a different page. Just let me get right up to the top. There we go. I'm back to the front. Nicole, I'll let you take over. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. Thank you so much for having me along and to talk about, the innovations and ideas in dispute resolution. I'm really looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say as well and what you share, and bringing them back to Africa for us to consider how they can help as well. Because I really think events like this, where we're able to hear and collaborate with other people facing similar challenges, is probably actually one of the answers to innovations and ideas in dispute resolution that will help to change the landscape. So looking forward to it. If you could just skip to the next slide, thank you. So it does feel as though the last 3 or 4 years, the world has been forced into a bit of an innovation mindset. So I'm sure we can all talk for hours about the various things we've tried, ideas we've come up with that have been game changers, and probably some that didn't work, but at least we tried, and maybe they moved us on to the next idea and progress. So being asked to talk today about some of the strategies AFCA put in place in the post-COVID world, which are helping to change the landscape and help us succeed in an environment of complex customer behaviour. One of the biggest challenges was whittling down the areas I could cover without talking everybody's ears off. So at the end of the day, I've put together some information about 2 of our key strategies to give you a bit of a flavour of which each target different elements of the big picture. So the first one is the IT transformation, which is all about ensuring we have the systems and technologies in place to work efficiently and listen to our customers and ask our customers for feedback, and in a way that actually allows us to draw genuine insights. And the second one is looking after our people. So obviously keeping our workforce engaged, psychologically safe in a very challenging environment. So on the next slide is all about our IT transformation. So we're very excited to be launching the transformation this year and introducing a new tailor-made system which will enable us to provide modern and efficient and a user-friendly experience for our customers and our team members as well. So with the updated system also comes an improved ability to gather and analyse data, help us identify trends in complaint products and issues much sooner, and understand in better detail how they progress through our process, on a real granular level about the different products and the issues. And, there's so many different things, especially in the banking and finance space that I deal with, that just nuances to complaints that would completely change the way they progress. So the new technology will allow us for streamlined processes, integrated systems, helps us ensure we maintain accessibility in the community, brings us up, kind of to the 21st century with accessible online portals and things like that, and support our commitment to fair and timely dispute resolution. So on the next slide, so this financial year, we launch a new consumer portal, which is a first for AFCA, and so a place where consumers will be able to log in, submit their complaints, track the progress and manage them themselves, receive notifications, send requests, upload information. In the past, we have kind of done this through emails, phone calls, the mail, which we can still do and recognise we will need to for our accessibility, but I think a lot of people will really be grateful to see the modern consumer portal when it comes out. We're also enhancing the member portal, which will help it to integrate with the consumer portal, be much more efficient and capable. And both of those will integrate with the case management system as well, which is all about the end-to-end complaint management for our staff, and include the ability to do things like share information in real time. So a complainant can upload a document, share it with the financial firm straight away. We can have oversight of that, but we don't need to be involved. And so, we don't need to be manually involved. So that will help our people free up their time for the more meaningful and rewarding aspects of the role that we do as well, communicating with the parties and negotiating and helping to achieve resolution instead of a lot of the manual administration. I've got to type a letter to say we're exchanging information with you and this is the information, when they can already see that and do that themselves. So that's, I guess, if you go to the next slide.
Sorry, before we jump to the next
sorry,
slide, we've got some. Sorry, Nicole, we've got a couple of questions already. So if it's okay, I thought we may as well ask the questions, answer the questions as we go.
I'm perfectly happy to try and answer them. I'm not the tech guru, but I'll do the best I can.
No, that's fine. So you did mention, I actually just had a question about how it's managed, I guess, at your end, at AFCA's end, but you did mention that it's integrated itself within the complaint management system. So if a complaint's assigned to one of your conciliators and the customer then uploads information in through this portal, I guess, they can automatically see that.
Yes.
Can they? Is that and so that's going to be integrated, and then you've just mentioned that then the member will be able to see that as well, or so you don't have to worry about. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, there will certainly be the option to upload and elect not to make it whatever information visible to the other party, which obviously, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is forms that banks might have that has privacy information, that sort of things, that they don't want exchanged automatically, but otherwise immediately available to all the parties in the complaint.
Okay, and another question that we've got is, what technology are you using to implement the new? Yeah, what technology are you using? It looks like you're using Microsoft Dynamics.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm glad you knew the answer. That's all I know as well is Microsoft Dynamics. That's what everyone keeps saying. But
Okay.
like I said, I'm not the tech guru, but that's what it's based on.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and it's got some great features. I mean, as if anyone who knows Microsoft Dynamics, from what I've heard, it's got the ability to really kind of build new things as we go along. So our team that's been our project team for Fusion have spoken to a few different overseas ombudsman schemes. I know they spoke to someone from the Canadian scheme, I think UK, who have introduced new systems, not this system, new systems along these lines before, and their advice was very much do this to start with and then build on any extras later so that it's not, you know, I suppose minimises the chance of things to go wrong.
And so obviously you've mentioned that this is financial year 24, so this is something that's being developed now to implement throughout this financial year. Well, and I'm sure the people in E1 would be very interested to see how that goes and how that works. So yeah, sorry, I'll go to your next slide.
Yeah, no problem. The next slide was just a bit of a view of the current member portal, which you can kind of see just from looking at it is a bit outdated, and maybe doesn't have amazing functionality, and a comparison to the new member portal, which will have automatic complaint referrals, alignment with RG271 timeframes, and our systems. It's quite manual at the moment in our registration team, I think, and new methods for AFCA to upload and exchange information as well, obviously. There's, I suppose, an ongoing, there's often problems with different file types and sizes and things like that this will hopefully help with. So there's not too much I need to go through on that slide, but more just for everybody's interest. The next slide talks about features of the consumer portal as well, which I might have already covered, but it's available to existing and new complainants. So we'll obviously at the time of introducing it have lots of existing complaints on foot, and we'll be able to migrate those over and have new people come through. It's much more user-friendly, and as I've mentioned, notifications, visibility of what stage the complaint is at, and you know, as that moves along in real time. And also, as I mentioned, we understand not all consumers can access our services online, and so we remain committed to being accessible and having our options through email and post and phone and all of that sort of thing as well. There's no requirement that the consumer portal is used for a complaint to go through the processes. All right, so the next slide, I mean, I'm happy to pause for any questions, as again, if there any more have come up, but otherwise I was going to talk about a couple of the people and culture initiatives that have been introduced in the last year or so.
No more questions at this point in the chat function. I guess actually I might just go back to that slide. Obviously, we've all got our own processes around responding to complaints, keeping members updated, keeping customers updated. Will it be built into this, say, the consumer portal? You've got notifications, upcoming milestones and tasks and things like that, where, like at this point in time, the Energy and Water Ombudsman New South Wales we've seen a considerable increase in complaints, and so we've got a bit of a delay. I'm not going to deny that we're not delayed in assigning complaints out. So would this portal have that functionality to sort of say where we might be delayed in assigning a complaint, or is it something that sort of just automatically gets allocated? Your teams have got, you know, a certain number of complaints, and then it's expected that they manage that, or?
It won't be automatically allocated to a caseworker at case management stage, if that's what you're asking. So
Yep.
we, at this, it's probably similar to you guys in that we'll have, we obviously have the refer back period, and then we'll have a workflow queue, and managers will pick up and allocate to their teams from there. So none of that will change, at least there's no plans to change any of that at the moment.
Okay.
But
That's
I think it does make it easier to send more bulk updates maybe along where somebody is in the queue, or as I said, communications to the parties.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
That's right, no problems. So the people and culture initiative, so just a few of them that I wanted to cover off that I thought were relevant to this. So the inclusion index, so we've introduced an inclusion index into our annual engagement surveys to measure how included our employees feel. And the questions I've put up there, I feel like I belong at AFCA, I can be myself at work at AFCA, everyone can succeed no matter who they are. And so that allows us to measure how included our employees feel, and we can benchmark that with external inclusion benchmarks as well. So our current score is 74% of favourable responses and over 90% of employees responding. And obviously, and since that survey, a lot of work also been done, which I will cover on the next slide, about it, diversity, inclusion and belonging, and employee-led resource groups and things like that as well, which we're really hoping will help bring that up even higher. The hybrid working approach, I almost didn't put this in, as I think it's probably everybody here has done that now, but encouraging that and built on connection and flexibility. So we do have things like anchor days for each individual team. So we expect at the moment, any full-time employee should be coming into the office 2 days a week. And what we would say is every team should have an anchor day where they all come in and get that connection and sort of build up the collaboration with each other as well. And then the second day of their choosing, whatever works with their schedules. And, there'll be certain events where we say, okay, an example being our diversity, inclusion and belonging day, or our recognition launch that we've had recently, where we ask everybody to come in on that day. So we have that flexibility built in with our office days. And we've also enhanced some wellbeing offerings. So we've got a lot of our people have gone through mental health first aid training. It's available to all of our employees from an external provider, Mental Health First Aid Australia. And we have regular wellbeing webinars and events in person and virtually, so everybody can attend those. And the next slide will, as we go on to the next one, thanks, can cover, as I mentioned, our diversity, inclusion and belonging strategy. With belonging at its core, we kicked that off just in the last 6 months and held a belonging event for all employees, where we had some really wonderful short stories shared about what belonging means to people of different backgrounds, different experiences they've had throughout their lives at other workplaces, even at AFCA. And it was a really nice way to kind of introduce our strategy, which includes the employee resource groups that are in the next box there. So we've got 4 employee-led resource groups at the moment, which is groups for like-minded people to get together and really influence AFCA's approach to each of their areas. So we've got one for our LGBTQIA+ and ally network, a multicultural and multi-faith employee resource groups, carers, and one for people with disabilities, and they're open to anybody with an interest in joining any of those groups from the day they join AFCA. So
sorry, I've just got a quick question. Do you have with the employee-led resource groups, do you have a high uptake in those, like people actually participating in that?
Yeah, some have been around longer than others as well. So some of them are larger than others. Our ally network has probably been around for a few years now. I couldn't tell you how many people are in it, but quite a large uptake. The disability network, for example, has only just kind of commenced in the last couple of months. It's got about, I think, 10 or 15 people in that. And each of the groups has an executive sponsor as well, who really helps, air that, or helps, provide guidance, but also, helps air the communication and the strategy around in AFCA, within AFCA.
Thank you.
No problem. And we celebrate, they each acknowledge different days of significance that are relevant to the groups throughout the year. So each of them will have a couple of probably in-person events per year, and then some virtual events or just communications acknowledging different days of significance that they may not hold an event for, but still need to be acknowledged on our intranet or an email or something along those lines. I think that is it for my presentation. I feel like I've spoken a lot. Hopefully everyone followed. I know I have a tendency to speak quickly, so hopefully I controlled myself a bit. But if anybody has any questions or wants me to go back and repeat anything.
No, thank you, Nicole. That's great. No Sounds like some really good initiatives there. As you've mentioned, changing world environment, and after COVID and hybrid working, we're moving back into that. And you've mentioned your anchor days, and then having an optional second day, which I think is really important. And yeah, I think it's looking at things differently. So I really do appreciate. Thank you, Nicole, for taking us through the change. Some initiatives and innovation that AFCA's put in. And as I said, whether I'm speaking for everybody here today, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about how you go with your consumer member portal. I think that's great. It sounds really hopefully a seamless integration into complaint management.
Crossed.
yeah. So thank you. And if anybody has any questions that you think of after, just put them in the chat function. We'll have time after everybody's presented to, if anyone here thinks of anything after, put them in the chat box. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you taking us through that. So questions. So the next presentation we've got is from Gijs Norija, who is taking us through from Telecommunication Industry Ombudsman. He's here. There he is. Thanks, Gijs. Sorry, I missed your introduction when you were having some slight technical difficulties there entering, but I did introduce everybody to you. So thank you very much today for taking us through some innovating ideas that the TIO has put forward. So I'll hand over to you. As I said, everybody, if you've got questions, please ask away. Thanks, Gijs. I'll hand over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natalie. Can everyone hear me? I'm just testing the sound. Yeah, wonderful. Great. Now, apologies, I couldn't log into Zoom, but thankfully my boss, Kathy, was successful. So I'm just taking over her laptop. Okay, that's why it says Kathy. My name is Gijs. If you want to say my full name is Gisvier Aldana Noriega, forget about it. Just call me Gijs. Okay, so for this presentation, I have two main objectives today. I would like to change the concept that you all have around innovation. So right now in the chat, if I can get everyone to tell me what's the first word that comes to your mind when I say innovation. If I tell you, think about innovation, what's the first word that comes to your mind? Just give it a go. There's no right or wrong answer, okay? Yeah, I'm seeing new, technology, opportunity, that's really good. Change, ideas, good. Transformation, that's a very good one, Transformation, change again, science, excellent, good. So most of the time when we think about innovation, we tend to be focused on a product. And yes, a product has to be innovative, transformative, have to change, but the word I'm after is breakthrough. There are multiple ways of innovation. And before I introduce you, what have we implemented at the TIO, I want to present to you a model that I really love. Natalie, if we can go on to the next slide. I don't know if I can manage it. No, that's okay. So while that comes, so the framework is called the Doubling Innovation Framework. I particularly love this framework because it shows you the entire value chain of a particular industry or a particular company. Can you guys see something? I can't see anything there. Oh yeah, I got it now. Fantastic, good. So what you have right there is a framework model that was developed by a consulting company called Dublin. And there is an excellent textbook that was published in 1998. And since its publication, it has helped more than 2,000 businesses around the world. And when I study innovation at my master's, we use this framework, and I particularly love it because, as I said before, you start thinking about things you wouldn't think of. So when I said, what's innovation to you? You all said, change, something new, a product. And that's okay. That's where our mind goes. Our mind goes to the latest iPhone. It goes to the VR model that that Apple is going together, and that's good. But we could also innovate around the profit model. Has any of you thought about going to finance and say, what are you using? What can we put in place to innovate, to change, to transform, to create a breakthrough? We could also look at networking. This is a very good one that is often overlooked. We could look at partnering with another organization to mitigate our gaps. And it's very, very, very powerful. We recently partnered with Thriving Communities to address few vulnerability issues that we've been having, and it was very good, and is mutually beneficial for the two businesses. We could have innovation around structure. It could just be about, does everyone need to be talking to each other? How do we arrange our team so we promote that environment? It could be around the product, that's the most obvious one. It could be around a particular system. Sure, we could all get into machine learning. We could all get into artificial intelligence. I know that's the hot thing right now. But on the customer side as well, we are schemes that deal heavily with our customers. We tend to forget that we could also innovate on that front. It could be how we deliver that particular service. What's the channel we use? When does our customer touch base with us? Have we even created a process flow and identify what sort of satisfaction, what's the sentiment of the customer experience throughout that value chain? Okay, so I leave this food for thought. I can talk a lot about it. As you can tell, I'm super passionate about this framework, but hopefully I can teach you something. This is something new, and explore it. So I'll move right now into the second point that I want to talk about, and I'll leave plenty of time for questions later on. That is the process. So we have particularly innovated around our process at the TIO. Okay, so looking at this particular framework, next slide, thanks Natalie. So we look at what's the process that we've been using to date in a particular project. So by legislation, the TIO requires that every 5 years, we get an independent review. And sorry, I said IR, IR stands for independent review. So the last recommendation independent review that we had was in 2022. But before that, there was one in 2017. This particular independent review provided 29 recommendations in total. And we couldn't implement all the recommendations. We only implemented 19 out of the 29 in 5 years. And when I started doing some research, I found that there were so many deadlines that were missed, and there was a decentralized delivery. And this is very important because this is where our innovation comes in later on. So we would have one big recommendation allocated to one particular team, and then more often than not, we will miss a deadline. And these are very difficult recommendations. So if I give you an example, one of the recommendations that we will be implementing this year is the TIO should expand the fields of social demographic data and inform its engagement and communication strategy. It sounds simple, but think about it. We would have to first identify all the social demographic data that we could get. We would have to do a privacy impact assessment. Can we actually retain documentation? Then we would have to make sure we notify the customer. If not, we will need to allow the customer to opt out if they don't want their data to be used. Then how do we link all this knowledge onto our engagement strategy? So it's a very good recommendation, but it's very complex. So what happened before is that this recommendation was allocated to one particular team, and this particular team had to liaise with multiple sides of the business. Therefore, it was difficult, was slow. It was not great, to put it in simple words. So the model that we put in place is the one that you see below. So we completely change and step away from the waterfall delivery and move into a more agile delivery, if you want it. So what we look at is, can we break one particular recommendation into multiple pieces? So think about software development. Software development often drive most of the value at the end of the process. All the coding that you do in between doesn't yield any value. So it's sort of similar, but what if we can break everything into small pieces, have a clear allocation of roles and responsibilities to all the teams so they can work, create a roadmap for change, and speed up all the delivery. And that's precisely what we did. So the same example that I use for recommendation 1, well, can we create one deliverable for legal to create a privacy impact assessment? Can we create another deliverable for the data team to create a gap analysis of the existing data versus the future state? Can we create another deliverable for our system team to explore all the system capabilities of, and so on and so on and so on. And then we place all these multiple deliverables into what we call tranches. So I wasn't too concerned about when in particular are you going to be delivering this? Is it the 15th of August? You're delayed on 1 week. We gave plenty of time. So we created, it needs to be done by October, December, April, or June. And we use a pool system in which all the owners will tell me, well, this is what I'm doing and this is by when. It sounds simple, but that drove a lot of ownership among the groups. And it was a completely centralized delivery as opposed to the centralized model that we had. Okay. And just to finish here, so the next slide, Natalie, thank you. So what happened next? So in only 9 months, we have completed 3 of those recommendations. We have partially completed 7 recommendations, and other 8 recommendations are in progress. If I compare with the last 5 years, when we only completed 19 recommendations in 5 years, I feel very confident that we, with this new approach, we have completely changed our delivery method. We have completely innovated on this front, and we have fast track all the benefits. So I won't bore you with, all the main benefits, all of those things is there if you want to have a look. But one of the main tangible benefits that we drove was that we managed to reduce our unresolved complaint queue and waiting time in more than 50%. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful result. And we keep iterating. So the fact that we managed to be on the right foot with this model, it doesn't mean that we're finished. It means that we need to keep refining and we need to keep adjusting. So just to round it up, I'll finish with what I mentioned at the very beginning. Think about the doubling model once again. When you think about innovation, don't think too much about the latest. I need to produce a particular product. I need to completely revolutionize the world. Sometimes the best breakthroughs are the simple ones. So just find a need and then make sure you find a framework. I'm recommending the doubling one and keep iterating on it. So I'm happy to leave it there, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments from anyone.
Thanks, Geese. That sounds very successful for you guys. Sounds like you've really changed, changed your approach, and it does sound like, you're going to be very successful in completing all of those recommendations in a very short period of time, which is fantastic. That's, yes. Does anybody have any questions at this point for Geese? Or if you've got any questions, ask away or put them in the chat. Helpful information, which is great. Thank you. Sounds like we've got no questions. You've covered it off fantastically, Geese. So it doesn't sound like anybody has any questions for you at this point in time. So thank you very much for taking us through that. I think obviously with all of our in all of our organisations, we've got processes, projects, all of those types of things. So this could be extremely useful for us in reframing what we're currently doing and whether there's, you know, those benefits in changing and having a look at that. So thank you. Really appreciate you taking us through that. As I said, everybody, if you've got questions, you think of anything after, put them in the chat. So now we have Mandy. Thank you, Mandy, for taking us through some innovation at EWOV, and I'll hand over to you. Thanks again for taking us through what's happening down in Victoria.
Thank you. Thanks for the time to speak. Firstly, Geese, I love enthusiasm for innovation. It just exudes in everything you say and do. So I'm sure you're an asset to TAO. And just drawing back on Nicole's comments at the start, I think it's so true. We are stronger and better if we're sharing and utilising this collective knowledge that we all have and the innovation that we are using to move forward with our little bits and pieces that we all seem to be working on. So thank you too. If I could go to the next slide, I thought on a few different things that we've been doing. We in the past have spoken about our technology roadmap and our refresh. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different slant and talk about some innovations and some strategies that we're putting in place post-COVID. So the first one is around complex consumers. So I'm not sure if everyone else is experiencing the same thing, but we are certainly seeing an uptick in people who are presenting with challenging situations, challenging responses to those situations, and really quite exhausted responses to our processes. So we're having people crying on the phone. We have had a significant uptick in people reporting self-harm, and also speaking to our staff in a way that perhaps we haven't seen in the past. So first and foremost, you know, we have concern for those consumers, but we also have concern for our staff, and we recognise that it would be incredibly challenging to be a frontline staff member at the moment and dealing with these complex situations. So whilst we are really cognizant of that and really recognise that sometimes these behaviours that are being exhibited are beyond people's control, and the situations they find themselves are beyond their control, we have to put some strategies in place to protect our people as well. So we have developed an unreasonable complainant behaviour policy, which is an internal document at the moment, but we are looking to develop and present an external facing document that actually just sets out the expectations that we believe that consumers should actually conduct themselves in a manner they should conduct themselves in when dealing with EWOV. We also, in the internal policy, we have some definitions that we actually use to define unreasonable behaviour, and it's really quite a robust process that we put in place before we actually limit access to EWOV or to our services as well. So that's one thing that we've put in place to actually assist in that regard. Because people are working from home as well, we have to make sure that they have the resources that they had in the office available to them at home in case they are dealing with someone who perhaps is presenting in an unsafe environment. So we've made sure that all staff have their quick reference guides for dealing with challenging situations at home as well as in the office, and strategies in place if they do find themselves that they need to make a welfare check call for a consumer, that they have the managers on pretty much on speed dial to assist them through that and to debrief as well. We have also taken time to really look at our workflows within our new CRM in regards to customer and scheme participant escalations, and really made sure that they are robust and actually assisting us in improving any pain points that we may be causing ourselves that we may not be recognising on that one call or the one interaction. So we have quite robust workflows in that regard, and we actually report up to our board on escalations now as well. So they have visibility around where consumers and where scheme participants are perhaps finding our policies and processes a little challenging as well. We have refreshed our complaints and compliments policy and really tried to put in place some different pathways for customers and scheme participants to complain about various different things. So it could be a complaint about our service, or it could be a complaint around the actual outcome of an investigation, and we treat those quite separately. So we have those now separated and workflows associated with each available on our website for everybody to see, and clear pathways for all. And the other thing that we've done most recently and has been quite successful is we've introduced having an on-site psychologist come into the office once a fortnight. That's through our EAP service, and they are here just for drop-in calls or visits. They wander the floor and just talk to people about how they're going with the work that they're doing, any situations that they might want to talk through, as well as conduct some workshops or training sessions as well. Initially, when we started this up, we weren't really sure whether there'd be great uptake or not with a psychologist on the floor once a fortnight, but it has been a resounding success, and people are utilising it and now thinking about all different ways that they could actually utilise that resource as well. So that's our most recent introduction in consumers' behaviours as well. Can I have the next slide?
Yeah, sorry, Mandy, just before I slide over to the next slide.
Yeah, go.
I was just going to say I was actually going to ask you when I was the psychologist on site, how the staff accepted that, but you've just mentioned obviously that you were concerned that it wasn't going to be utilised, but it has been, which is fantastic. It's actually something that E1 is just introducing now. So, and something I think I've been sort of thinking, I don't know how the staff, will go with this, but it's really pleasing to hear that the staff, especially at EWOV, are utilising it a lot, and they're actually thinking in advance how they can come in and use that service. Fantastic. So wonderful.
Yeah. I think to answer the question, it was in the chat as well, it is through our EAP service. I think breaking down the stigma of a psychologist being around and making it something that's just normal has really helped as well, and opening the conversation to include many things, and not just let's talk about you. It might be, let's talk about how you're dealing with this person, and that has helped quite a lot as well. So I think the stigma around perhaps finding work challenging or mental health and mental resilience is something that we've really been proactive in trying to encourage people to speak up rather than to suffer in silence.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really, really great.
So the next thing I wanted to move on to is a little bit of innovation that we have started. So when we refreshed our CRM in 2021, it is now, we made sure that the system was robust enough to incorporate AI and any advancements that we wanted to put in place. So anyone that's thinking of a new CRM, perhaps, you know, that flexibility and ability to build on its capabilities is really important, and things that you need to think of right at the forefront. We do have some AI in place already, but we're really cognizant as well that before we launch into a really fulsome use of AI in multiple different areas, that we need to develop an ethical AI framework, just to make sure that we have some checks and balances in place to make sure that any AI that we do adopt is actually done in a way that we're comfortable with, and that we can hand on heart say that there are no unintended consequences of the use of AI, and that we're safeguarding our consumers and our staff through the use of AI. I've included the link that we're using here because we've found the government's, federal government's framework really quite simple and helpful to use in this regard as well. It gives you a good basis to build on and actually manipulate your framework to something that is user-friendly for your environment. So there, that's just a very high-level overview. I'll go to the next slide if I could, and show you one of the things that we are using AI for, and that is in our knowledge space. So on form in our CRM, we have built in AI to help our staff with knowledge. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the circle that I've popped in around, this is a high bill case. As a staff member is typing their summary, on the right-hand side, knowledge articles will start to pop up that are related to keywords that we've tagged in those knowledge articles. So for example, if you're starting to type that this is a high bill case, on the right-hand side, you'll start to see high bill knowledge articles pop up. Similarly, if you're dealing with a default listing and you type in those keywords, the knowledge articles that we've tagged with credit default will start to pop up as well, so staff can start to use those. You can expand if you go on the next slide, please, Nat. You can expand this into a full screen version of your knowledge article and have a quick read and get yourself back to your case if you want to quite quickly. So that's one easy, simple way that we've implemented AI. And is quite useful. You do have to manually tag the articles to start with when you're creating the articles, but once they're tagged, every time those keywords are typed into a new summary screen, they will pop up. And it's quite useful. We can also track the use with thumbs up, thumbs down kind of technology, and it is kind of quite organic and quite reactive. So you'll get the most popular articles to do with the high bill that will come up first, and so forth. The articles live on our CRM, so they're on platform. Sorry, I think there are a few questions there, Nat. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you've answered all of them, I think, Mandy, actually. I've been watching the questions.
Okay.
I think
okay.
It was, yes, you've mentioned that they were tagged manually at the start, stored in your CRM. Just one question I actually had there was, these articles, like, how often would you look at them and say, okay, actually that information might be outdated now?
Yeah,
or is
so
that
a really good question. It's a job, I think, and I think it needs a dedicated resource. So we are actually in the midst of thinking around who do we get, or how do we actually make sure that they are still up to date, they are working the way that they should be working. So we're looking to fill a role of a knowledge owner. Whose sole responsibility will be to ensure that these articles and the knowledge that we're sharing and how we're sharing them with staff and with consumers and scheme participants is correct, up to date, We also have the ability, we're rolling out our customer portal later this year as well. And following that will be our scheme participant portal. We have the ability to tag these articles for consumers and scheme participants as well. So they won't automatically show, but if we deem that an article is appropriate for perhaps a customer, we can just click a button and it will expose on the customer portal as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it would work in exactly the same way.
Yep.
We can pop over to the next slide. So I just thought I'd chat about chat. So we've had chats via our website for approximately 4 years. I have to say it's not an area that we've seen rapid uptake in or growth, but to be accessible, it is something we are committed to. We get about 3 chats a day. And some days we'll get more, some days we'll get less. We use the chat function to register complaints initially. So we have that general chat with a consumer and lodge the case into our system. We are looking to bring it in into the system a little with a little more integration into the future. But I think for us to develop the chat function in a more fulsome way, we would really like to explore using chat throughout the life cycle of a complaint and not just for registration of complaints as well. So until we're ready to take that challenge on and move it right through the life cycle of a complaint, we'll just keep using it as we're using it and not develop it any further. And look at our other avenues which seem to be more popular at the moment as well. But yes, we've had it for about 4 years and it works well for some consumers, mainly for inquiries, not necessarily overly complaint focused, but perhaps someone's on our website and they just want to ask a question. It is used quite a bit for that as well. Next slide, please. The reason why we haven't invested in our thinking or our time in actually enhancing it any further is we run a technology survey with our consumers once a year. And over the last 2 years, we've asked the customers where we've investigated their complaints if we had a chat function, whether they would be interested in using it, and it's around 50-50 and it hasn't grown over time. There is possibly a strong case there for it. 50% is quite a good result, but it's not a resounding yes, we need it, that we have to have it, we can't live without it. So we'll continue to track it and monitor if behaviours change over time and use that as a good source of information to actually to start change with. That technology survey goes out to about 10,000 customers a year, and we get quite a good response rate. We get well over 1,000 responses back, which is quite a good sample size. Next slide, please, Nat. Bringing back to what we're doing around innovating and supporting our staff and our strategies around that, we're really focusing on psychological safety. And we have quite a robust wellbeing program that runs month on month. And we normally have a topic that we choose each month to bring that wellbeing program to life. And as you can see in the little picture, our July wellbeing focus was on resilience. It was quite a timely focus to have, and we had some guest speakers, we have challenges, and we have online sessions that people can opt into, opt out of if they wanted to. And that's something that we invest in through our people and culture team each month. And we have a different focus each month. It's really well received. People, when we look at our value proposition, people do value having this wellbeing initiative, and something that we ensure that we encourage people to tap into quite regularly as well. Next, please, Nat. And as I said before, we have the on-site EAP at work. So this is our proactive support for wellbeing of our staff and mental health. It is a trial. It has been really successful. We will continue with it. We're also in the short term going to have all our leaders in the business run through mental health first aid training as well, as we feel that that's something that would benefit us as a EWOV community, and certainly something that people have said that they value when we are well equipped and able to support our staff as well. So next slide, I think, I'm not sure. So just tapping back into the pathways to complain, we, you know, when people complain about your service, it's never great, but we need to take it as an opportunity to improve, and having clear pathways for people to complain is really, really important. We have ensured through redeveloping our compliments and complaint policies that we are triaging complaints in a timely way. We're separating out the types of complaints so that we can really analyse and focus and drill down in a quick and timely manner around the types of complaints we are getting, and we have committed to report all complaints back to the board to ensure there's transparency at every level of EWOV. We will also another focus that we are doing in the not too distant future is we're going to move some of our triaging of complaints and the handling of complaints about our service outside of the dispute resolution function and into a quality assurance function, and through our scheme participant liaison as well. And in doing that, we're really making sure that we're getting some fresh and independent eyes on a complaint and really being as objective as we possibly can in handling those complaints. And it will also, in the flip side of it, it will free our dispute resolution managers up, their time up to actually focus on their staff rather than handling these escalations that can be quite time consuming as well. So a little bit of a realignment of responsibilities there at EWOV as well. And that is it from me. I think I have spoken quite quickly and a lot, but I'm happy to take your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. I really appreciate that. And seems like there's a lot of things happening at EWOV that you know that you're implementing and you're changing. And does anybody at this point in time, I know that we're right on time, but a couple of minutes, does anybody have any questions for Mandy specifically, or thinking back to what Nicole or Gis were talking about? If there are any other questions that people have got, by all means speak out or pop them in the chat. But I think in terms of what you've got and some of the initiatives, in terms of, I think that quite a lot of people appeared quite interested in your articles and that popping up and integrating quite well. That seems really very useful, and to have that functionality to be built in, as you've mentioned, you know, if we're building new or looking at new CRMs or new systems, what are the potentials of it later down the track? Yeah, that looked very, very useful. And I think you've mentioned
we're always
also
happy to have chats offline as well around the CRM and any of the elements of it. So I'm dobbing Damien in for that, but if anyone wants to reach out, we're more than happy to help.
I've just stopped sharing so that I can see all of your faces now. I think I just wanted to say, and I think you mentioned it, Mandy and Nicole, these forums and these webinars are great at having that ability to reach out and understand what other organisations. We are stronger if we do things as stronger and better, as you mentioned, Mandy, together, sharing information, sharing what's working, what's not working. I mean, obviously, if other organisations have tried things and they're not working, then it's, you know, we might not go down that path and waste time. But it's a good opportunity for us to share resources, share information, get to know each other. And I just want to say thank you very much to Nicole, to Mandy, and to Geese for sharing what's happening within their organisations and what's working really well, and presenting today, and everybody for participating and asking questions. And as I said, you know, and Mandy's mentioned, there's always time, or there's always opportunity after these sessions to ask questions and reach out. So thank you very much, everybody. Does anybody have any last questions before everyone has to race off to another meeting? I'm sure. Doesn't look like it. But again, yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for today. We'll see you again in a couple of months. So best of luck. And I'm sure you might have some people reaching out to you to ask some more questions. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Have a good
Natalie.
day,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you.